Good evening. Depending on where you are in the world, it could be morning, evening, afternoon. This is the Invisible Man, and this is Invisible Man 733 Presents. Today I have the Afrodescendant Minister of Economics, Mr. Kamal Akrum. However, we will not be discussing economics, which is very interesting. He's going to talk about how to eat to live. Hello, sir. How are you?
Great, Mr. Invisible Man. How are you this afternoon?
I'm still invisible. So,
So you understand.
yes, sir. It is very interesting that in addition to being an expert in economics and representing the Afro-descendant nation, that you would want to talk about how to eat to live. Now, why is it important that we even have a discussion on eating? I can't ask why is it important we have a discussion on living. So what does eating have to do with living?
Well, as you may have heard, and I'll quote the Honorable Silis Muhammad right after that, um, and I'm paraphrasing. He basically stated that food can keep you here and on the planet, and food can also take you away and hasten your death. So the choices that you make with respect to what you eat and how frequently you eat uh, have a tremendous impact on your life.
Okay. So that means that even though you can't see me and I'm invisible, I may have a weight problem. So what do I do and what causes a weight problem?
Well, a weight problem is usually caused by either eating too much of the wrong food, or you can also eat the right food but too frequently. So, to correct that, you would just need to simply cut back on what you're eating and concentrate on the correct foods.
Well, could you begin to name some of the things that we should eat and some of the things that we don't eat? And let me clarify it a little bit. As a Afro descendant, is our diet really very healthy for us, to your knowledge?
In terms of the average Afro-descendant here in the United States of America, we have been documented as having the worst diet of any group of people on the planet. Um, I wasn't prepared to offer that reference, but many people may have heard that. And a lot of that stems from the diet that we adopted during slavery, where the slave master basically fed us either scraps from his table or that which he was using to feed the livestock. A lot of that food was really meant for animals, and we adopted it as our own food, calling it soul food. But a lot of that food that we have adopted as a people, as Afro descendants, is detrimental to our health.
Something that you just said, uh, livestock. Now, it's my understanding that during the shackle time period of slavery, where we were on the plantation, that food was literally thrown on the ground for children and adults to eat like animals. Have you heard that as well?
No, sir, I have not heard that, but I can imagine, based on the brutality, the level of brutality of the slave master. I wouldn't put it past him to do such a thing in many circumstances.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm sure our listeners can find that research. So, back to being overweight and invisible. How to change that situation?
Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the last and greatest messenger of Allah, wrote two books uh, called How to Eat to Live, Book One, and How to Eat to Live, Book Two. Book One, I believe, was published and made available for the Afro-descendant public in the late 60s. And I think he completed Book Two in the early 70s. And in his book, How to Eat to Live One and How to Eat to Live Two, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad explains which foods we should eat to promote longevity and which foods we should avoid or completely, you know, uh, not eat at all or not consume at all to promote longevity. In addition, he introduced the Afro-descendant public, or the black man, woman, and child in America, to fasting, which was basically unheard of by black people in the United States of America from 1930 going forward um, until up to today.
So what you're saying is that I should not be eating 3 meals a day and snacking in between.
This is something that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad stressed in both of his books, that eating 3 meals a day is the Caucasian white man's system of eating, and people that eat on that type of schedule will live an average life of anywhere from about 60 to 80 years.
Mm,
He also explained that we had those of us forefathers, black forefathers, who had lived up to almost 1,000 years by training their stomachs to accept food or training themselves to intake food once a week.
hmm
So he also explained that if you were barely making it to 100, you were still considered a baby in some cultures in the past.
Well, that's what I wanted to say when you mentioned the soul food, the particular cuisine that most of us are familiar with comes from the South and the plantation, such as the ham hocks, the pork chops, the ribs that are pork, and uh, some people really swear by them, chitterlings. Any comment on that type of food?
Well, in the book How to Eat to Live, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad explains that pork in and of itself is divinely prohibited, meaning that even scripture tells you that you should not touch consume or touch the carcass of the swine. You can find that in the book of Leviticus, in the dietary laws. So, chitlins, pork chops, ham hocks, anything that comes from a pig is divinely prohibited by Almighty God Himself. In fact, just about every other religion that has dietary laws um, say that you should not eat pork or what they call the swine.
Mm-hmm.
Swine is the German word for pig.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
but so that's divinely prohibited. Now, in slavery times, sometimes for a lot of the slaves to just get any kind of meat was considered a luxury. You talk about lamb chops. That's I don't think slaves too much would ever see a lamb chop
Okay.
because that was considered a luxury by the slave master.
Yes, sir.
So he might have got some scraps maybe that came
Mm-hmm.
from a pig, but most of the other food that we were eating as slaves was not good for us as well.
Such as, can you name a few?
Um, well, what is popular amongst black people are some of the greens like collard greens, mustard
Mm-hmm.
greens, turnip greens. These type of foods are not easy on the stomach.
Oh,
In How to Eat to Live, Book One and Book Two, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talks about eating foods that are easy to digest. In today's language, we would say eating foods that are stomach friendly.
Mm-hmm.
The messenger didn't use that terminology, but nowadays, if anything is easygoing, if a computer is easy to use, we say it's user friendly.
Yes,
Likewise
sir.
with food, people nowadays, if they want to extend their life and rid themselves of disease and sickness, they should concentrate on stomach friendly foods to start off. So a lot of the foods the slaves were eating were not stomach friendly. Another one that became popular amongst us is anything made from corn, such as cornbread. Corn byproducts are difficult to digest. In fact, I've learned through economics that 90% of the corn grown is used for livestock. So only 10% of the corn grown is actually fed to human beings and
Say
or
that again.
used.
Only 10% of the corn that's grown is fed to people.
Right, or used to produce other products. There's thousands of products that are made from corn.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking like corn chips,
Mm-hmm.
Fritos, Flamin' Hots, popcorn, cornbread, cornmeal. Anything made from corn is not good for the digestive system, according to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Oh, so in places like Nebraska and Kansas, there are thousands of cornfields, but it's primarily for animals. It should
Correct.
be. And is it true that a cow has two stomachs?
You said a cow?
Hmm.
Yes, a cow has two stomachs.
Oh,
Um, but I don't recall reading that in How to Live.
yes,
But
sir.
the stomachs are used to double digest the food,
Mm-hmm.
which is an asset for a cow. You know, it makes sure it ensures that the cow is whatever he's eating is double digested, which is
Mm-hmm.
easier on his system um, as an animal. The pig, um, contrary to how the pig doesn't care what he eats. He
Mm-hmm.
will eat when it's raining, storming, hailing. Uh, he doesn't know or have the sense to stop eating. If he has enough food to eat, he will keep eating.
Mm-hmm.
I think in How to Live, it even mentions that a pig is known to even eat his own young
Mm-hmm.
if if he is so inclined,
Mm-hmm.
because he doesn't have the sense to know what to eat, what not to eat. He just eats. Eating is just something that he does as a pig, uh, which is
That's his
one reason
nature.
why the pig is divinely prohibited.
Yeah.
The other reason is he's full of poison.
Mm-hmm.
A rattlesnake can bite a pig, and I think the rattlesnake would incur more danger than the pig would from the
Because
snake.
the pig would turn around and eat him, huh?
That I've heard that. Yes, sir, I have heard
Yes,
that the
sir.
pig might
Well,
try to eat the rattlesnake. Yes, sir.
now I've heard this also since we were speaking about the pig, that they have an opening somewhere on their hoof that's like a sewer line that lets out some of the poison that they have eaten.
Yes, that is correct. It's right above the hoof, what we
Mm-hmm.
would call maybe the ankle
Uh-huh.
in the pig. And this is where a lot of the poison oozes out. We may look at it and call it pus.
Mm.
And as you know, pus is dead white blood cells that have killed
Yes,
off
sir.
poison
Mm-hmm.
in the body.
Now, you were talking about byproducts. I remember years ago being in Atlanta when a person published a book called How Not to Eat Pork. And she was saying how pork was in so many different products and so forth. So sometimes it seems like you can't escape it in a commercial society.
Well, one would have to really do their due diligence and studying, and that book was published by Shahrazad Ali.
Yes, sir.
Not eat pork. She mentioned numerous products such as lotions,
Mm-hmm.
shampoos, different kinds of toothpaste,
Yes,
all
sir.
different types of products, the names of certain chemicals to look for on the label of certain food products, uh, to try to minimize as much as possible your consumption of pork, because in this society they use it in thousands of products, like you mentioned. And you
Yes,
really
sir.
have to do your study and due diligence. You have to commit yourself to reading the labels on a lot of the food products in an attempt to avoid consuming pork as much as possible.
Let's switch to a grain or a nut, like a peanut. How do you feel about a peanut, and what can you tell me about that?
Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in Hari to Live, he said that peanuts were not good for our stomachs. Um, they're extremely hard to digest. He does have a quote in his book that says I think he uses the term a meal of
Mm-hmm.
nuts would take 5 years off your life. They are extremely
Mm-hmm.
hard to digest. And personally, I have heard that when older people start having digestive problems, the first thing or one of the first things the doctor takes them off of or tells them not to eat is nuts, because
Oh.
nuts are hard to digest. They may be they may have some valuable nutrition aspects to the
Mm-hmm.
nut.
Protein, I understand.
Protein, high in protein, yes, but nuts are really for animals like squirrels.
Mm.
Um, for them to eat, just like the turnip greens, the
Mm-hmm.
mustards, and the collards. Those are really for animals to eat. They have a system that's more conducive to digesting those products.
Well, you mentioned turnips. I've heard that it's good to eat the bottom of the turnips and not the green part.
Yes, that I think the Honorable Elijah Muhammad does mention that in How to Live, although I can't remember exactly what he said to comment on it right now.
Yes, sir. Uh, let's get a little bit more serious. Does food have a spiritual counterpart?
Well, now this is something that I have more experienced um, in terms of my fasting program.
Hmm.
Uh,
Now, before you begin, let me ask you another question that may astound our audience. At this point in your development and journey and dealing with this topic of how to eat to live, how many days is it before you consume a meal?
I typically skip 4 days,
Hmm.
and then I have what I call an eating period. I don't
Yes,
call
sir.
it a meal. I call
Oh,
it an eating period, and I can explain that. That comes from the Honorable Silis Muhammad's food law. It
okay.
came out in October of 1981. But
Now, for those, excuse me, for those who have not been listening to other conversations, who is the Honorable Silas Muhammad, please?
the Honorable Silis Muhammad, spiritually, he is the spiritual son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He is known for one of the many things he's known for, standing up the lost foundation of Islam in August of 1977, after the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's son, Wallace uh, D. Muhammad, had taken over the nation when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad passed away in February of 1975. He turned the spiritual focus, to Orthodox Islam.
Hmm.
And the Honorable Silas Muhammad is credited for having stood up the lost foundation of Islam to bring back teachings of Master Farad Muhammad, the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He also brought back the FOI, GCC, MGT,
Those are
along
brief.
with Hadi to
What
Live.
what is an FOI and what does GCC mean?
FOI stands for the Fruit of Islam, which is the military aspect of the nation, and that would include all the men.
Hmm.
MGT, or Muslim Girls Training, and General Civilization class are taught to the women.
Oh,
Uh, and this was given to us by our Savior, Master Prophet Muhammad, as taught to us by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
okay. So I keep hearing the term nation, and nations have laws. So you law. Now, could you begin to talk about what the Honorable Cyrus Muhammad implemented with a food law, please?
Well, to start off from a spiritual standpoint, when the Honorable Silis Muhammad returned to stand the lost foundation of Islam back up on its correct posture, he identified the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as Moses. And he part of that teaching was that Moses went up to the mountain, and that symbolized the death of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, peace be upon him. And then he saw himself in the scriptures as that Moses that came back down from the mountain uh, with some laws. One of the laws that was given to us, like I stated in 1981, in fact, I could quote the exact date, that was October 7th, 1981, because I was personally present at that lecture in Los Angeles,
Hmm.
California. He gave us what is known as the food law, which is makes it mandatory for any Muslim who is registered in the Lost Foundation of Islam to eat no more than one meal a day. In addition, or inside of that law, there were different levels of eating that one could aspire to attain to, such as eating every other day, every third day, and every fifth day.
Yes, sir. Now, just a minute before you go on, you mentioned October 7th. Is that a significant date, contemporary Muslims?
Absolutely. October 7th is the birthday of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was born in 1897 in Sandersville, Georgia. On October 7th, we celebrate that day as a national holiday. In addition to the Honorable Silas Muhammad recognizing him as fulfilling the prophecy or a portion of the prophecy of Moses, he also identified the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as our spiritual mother Mary of Scripture, who gave birth to us as a nation after his mind was impregnated with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding by Master Prophet Muhammad. So that day now is called Mother's Day.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, back to this food. The relationship between man and food is very serious, correct?
It is very serious because what we put in our bodies in terms of food and liquid determines our longevity. It can also determine our disposition, how we're going to feel
Mm-hmm.
mentally, how we're going to feel physically. It also could determine our weight, whether we're gaining weight or whether we're losing weight. Food has food is the most impactful activity that we put our bodies through on a day-to-day basis.
Wow, that's very interesting. So, if you overeat, you will suffer. How about undereating? Will that harm you as well?
Well, inside of How to Live, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad introduces the Black nation, Afrodescendants, to fasting. Now, there are those who, there's all kind of different fasts, but the type of fast he introduced us to uh, was given to us to promote longevity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are some spiritual aspects as well that come with that, although the messenger of Allah, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, mainly um, talked about the aspects of longevity with respect to how we eating and what fasting can do for us, in addition to improving our health. He stated that correct eating and fasting would eliminate 90% of the black man's medical issues and problems. So that is very impactful. He explained that that would save a lot of money going to the doctor,
Mm-hmm.
medical bills. Also, one would save money on their groceries, not
Mm.
having to eat every 3 or 4 times a day with snacks in between.
Yes, sir.
Eating one meal a day would save a lot of money on your groceries. He also spoke of eating mostly fruits and vegetables, and he cautioned us about eating meat as well.
That now before you say that, I was just about to ask, should we be meat eaters?
In How to Live, it is explained to us by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that meat hastens death. speeds up your death. So
Hmm.
meat in and of itself is difficult to digest. Um, Although the only meat that is divinely prohibited is the swine or the pork.
Yes, sir.
So Muslims are known to eat beef, lamb, chicken, turkey. Now I myself, I'm a vegetarian, so I have
Oh,
gotten rid of the meat,
yes,
but
sir.
uh, the meat is difficult to digest in general
Hmm.
and will hasten death.
Now, let me ask you this. As a person who does not eat meat, if you are around meat when it's being prepared, does it make you feel funny?
Um, well, I've been fasting for so long. It's been since 1992 since I ate once a day.
Yes, sir.
So I've been skipping days eating since 1992. And then I became a vegetarian in 2008.
Hmm.
So that doesn't bother me. I can smell food cooking. I can
No, no,
walk
not food. I'm
down.
talking about particularly about meat because I knew a person who was a vegetarian, and they said that they became deathly ill when they were around meat being prepared.
No, the only thing that really is offensive is the smell of pork being
Yes,
cooked.
sir. Oh, okay.
Um, I don't mind walking down Rush Street in the north side of Chicago past the steakhouses and smelling that steak. It doesn't bother me. And then the
Well,
only other thing that bothers me is fish because I'm
hmm.
allergic to fish. So
Oh, you
the
can't
smell
eat
of fish
fish.
cooking will water my eyes and make my
Hmm.
nose run.
So you,
I
you
will
you
have
can't eat fish at all.
I cannot eat fish at all. I'm allergic to fish.
Oh, wow. Well, you said, and you mentioned a particular geographical point. Chicago was known as a place where there were lots of stockyards. And I believe Upton Sinclair, he wrote The Jungle based upon his findings there. He was a great journalist and writer. That's something that people should check out his work because he talks about, and his work actually helped to clean up the meatpacking industry in Chicago. So,
Yes, it did, and I believe, and I read that book too, and
yes,
I
sir.
believe that took place in the early 1900s,
Hmm.
and I'm thinking in the 20s
Yes, sir.
before Honorable Elijah Muhammad met Master Farag Muhammad, and then the stockyards were in the up and down Halsted, in what is now known as, because they're not there now, but
Hmm.
it's now known as the back of the yards neighborhood
Oh, yes, sir.
in the
I've heard of
40s
that. Hmm.
on the near south side in the 40s. Mostly near
Well,
houses. Now, when I was growing up, I'll tell you this, in the 60s and 70s, if the
mhm.
wind blew the right way, you could smell the livestock.
That's not a good place.
Anywhere in Chicago, depending on where the wind was, which direction the wind was blowing.
Yes,
I do
sir.
recall that. I do recall that.
Okay, we were talking about illnesses such as hypertension, diabetes, and the dreaded tapeworm, or what comes from eating pork, trichinosis. Could you elaborate on any of that?
Well, I believe the trichina worm, which
Mhm.
is responsible for causing trichinosis and other diseases. My father had myositis, which is attributed to the trichina worm as well.
Yes, sir.
The tapeworm is something else that can come from the pig.
Hmm.
But as you know, the pig, I believe the Honorable Elijah Muhammad quoted, has as many as 999 diseases that it
Mm.
can transfer to a human being.
Wow.
So I'm not surprised that only two of those were mentioned
You know
in
what
terms of worms.
that people talk about, but
But
diabetes, that's a very serious thing in our community, Afrodescendants.
well, the diabetes is caused mainly by two things. I mean, you can get very specific with it, but
Hmm.
overeating can cause diabetes because we're overeating too much of the wrong thing, mostly starch and sugar.
Hmm.
And then also not eating enough of the correct food can
Yes,
cause
sir.
diabetes, so but that is a major health issue with people who are overweight. You don't necessarily have to be overweight, but in that case, you would be eating too much of the wrong foods. But this is something that definitely afflicts Black people,
Hmm.
Afro-descendants in the United States of America, because they are consuming too much of the wrong type of food and too often.
Hmm. Well, I
Hypertension comes
recently.
along with that. That's high
Hmm.
blood pressure,
Hmm.
heart disease. Our people lead in a lot of these illnesses when it comes to different ethnic groups,
Yes, sir.
such as heart disease, hypertension, type 2 diabetes. And our diet is definitely the one thing that is a major thing, I would say, that's holding us back in terms of being successful across the board.
Well, you know what I'm about to say, you may disagree with. Well, my father ate pork and he lived to be 80. So it don't mean nothing. What do you say to a person who says something like that?
Well, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad mentions that in his book.
Hmm.
He does say that we used to live up to 1,000 years, and that if you only made it to 100, you were considered weak or still a baby.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I recall it was common for the African
Hmm.
before the slave trade started. It was common for them to live over 100.
Yes, sir.
Um, just in general, their lifespan, average lifespan, was probably over 100 for a lot of those brothers
Hmm.
before the coming of the white man or the colonizer, as I call
Hmm.
them,
Yes, sir.
into Africa. Hmm.
Now, in today's world, with the pandemic, with the shortage of supplies, as people are discovering as they go to the stores that what they used to see there may not be in abundance, and the price is going up. Is that what makes this knowledge very necessary?
Well, what makes the knowledge necessary is that the information in How to Eat to Live by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad will enable those people who adopt that information, who execute and who utilize the information, will give them better health. You don't have to spend a lot of money to eat many of the things that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says are the best things to eat, such as the
Mm-hmm.
small white navy bean, a lot of the vegetables and fruits. These things are still relatively affordable for the majority of Afro descendants here in the hills and wilderness of North America. Now, if you try to eat all kind of exotic foods that aren't good for you, like shrimp and your high quality meat and things like that, then your grocery bill can skyrocket.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, if you're fasting, if you adopt a fasting program, then you're not going to be eating every single day. So these things would save the black man, woman, and child money. They
Mm-hmm.
would improve our health, and they would also increase their spiritual awareness of cutting back on the food that they're eating.
Okay. Let me throw a term out at you. Two words. You ready?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Jacob's ladder. Have you ever heard of it?
I've heard of Jacob's ladder. It's in the scriptures.
Does it have any reference to food, to your knowledge?
I have heard, but I'm not qualified to comment right
Okay,
now.
okay. All right. I just thought I'd ask. You don't know something, you have to ask. Now, what about intermediate fasting? That seems to be a pretty popular activity today. People say, oh, I'm practicing intermediate fasting because fasting has become mainstream now. Any comments on that?
Yes, I'm not so sure if it's becoming mainstream. There are more doctors recommending intermediate fasting.
Yes, sir.
I recommend, and this is based on my experience, I recommend what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has prescribed for Afro descendants, and that is to eat one meal a day. That's
Mm-hmm.
cyclical, because he also said you should eat that one meal within a specific time frame, maybe within a 2 or 3 hour time frame. This was reiterated in food law given
Mm-hmm.
to us by the Honorable Silis Muhammad. Now, when it comes to fasting, we are also told as Muslims that we should fast 3 days at the end of each month to get rid of any poison or toxins that have accumulated in the body over the
Hmm.
course of a month,
Yes, sir.
even as eating once a day. So that in and of itself is also cyclical. You're eating, you're fasting 3 days, 72 hours at the end of each month,
Hmm.
and then you're eating once a day or every other day. Every other day is also cyclical because now you have a period in which you eat once every 48 hours. So
Yes, sir.
intermediate fasting can have some benefits, but once you put things on a cycle, it complements the universe. Everything
Hmm.
in the universe operates on a cycle. As we created it, the Earth orbits around the sun, the moon orbits around the Earth. We have seasons depending on where you live on the planet that are
Hmm.
cyclical. Electrons orbit around an atom. Uh, the woman has a menstrual cycle. We have a sleep cycle. The whole universe operates on cycles. So if the food is the most impactful activity that you engage in on a day-to-day basis, this too should be cyclical on some type of cycle so your body can get used to the rhythm. It creates a rhythm. Cycles create rhythms,
Okay.
and rhythms are beneficial. If you are interrupting that rhythm or you haven't created any type of cyclical activity in terms of your eating, or a lot of other aspects in life, then you're confusing the body. Your body
Hmm.
doesn't know when you're going to do this or when you're going to do that. When it comes to eating, if you're not eating on a cycle, your body does not know when you're going to give it food and when you're not going to give it food. Because if it's on a cycle, then your body will naturally, biochemically prepare itself to consume food because it knows when you're going to feed it.
Yes, sir.
So you're kind of like training the body.
That's what I was thinking. Those were my words. But now, uh, here's something that you thought maybe just went by me, but I heard you. You said when we created. So that's a whole different conversation there than eating. You said we created. So who are you? Who did you mean when you said we? Because that went right by me.
Well, one of the major lessons that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us, and that came from Almighty God Allah, Master Prophet Muhammad, to whom all honor and praises will forever be due. We call a lesson C1, and
Hmm.
the question is asked, who is the original man?
Oh,
And the famous answer is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, cream of the planet, and God of the universe. So,
mm,
um, part of the information that we were given by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is that the black man himself is the God. He is the owner, the maker, not just of the planet Earth, but God of the entire universe, which a lot of people have a problem trying to conceive because
hmm,
if there are other beings out there on other planets, other
hmm,
galaxies, and other solar systems, we are the God over everything that exists.
mm,
Which is quite a unfathomable thing to for some
mm-hmm,
people to consider. So another simple way to look at God is
hmm.
one who is in control of the self. And the
Oh,
Honorable Silis Muhammad made a famous statement in the food law when he gave it to us October 7th, 1981. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, you will never know that man is God until you master yourself.
hmm.
So food is the most is man's greatest weakness. So if you can master the food, you can master when you eat, when you fast, what you eat, how you
Yes,
eat.
sir.
If you can master that, you can master anything else in the universe, not just on the planet. You hear ministers say, you can master anything on the planet. I'll
Well,
put it out there. You can master anything in the
a lot,
universe.
a lot of questions come to mind, but I'm not
You
going to
can
go
master
there.
your diet.
We've been going for about 40 minutes. We're going to go a little bit longer because this is very serious. And today, society, we have so many people who are obese, whether visible or invisible, and it's just ridiculous. And as you said, I've heard this too, that we as Afro descendants, our diet is really what's killing us. You mentioned the Navy bean. Why is the Navy bean so important?
Well, they say the navy bean gives life. It's an ancient product. It's been eaten by our people for thousands and thousands of years. I would like to say millions of years, but
Hmm.
um, I believe in the Hadith, the messenger goes back to ancient times. I believe
Yes,
is what
sir.
it is. It's a bean that he says gives life. It's easy on the digestive system.
Hmm.
Unlike other beans, the larger beans like the kidney beans, the great northerns, lima
Hmm.
beans, these beans are harder on our digestive system to digest. So the small white navy bean is one of the best things we can eat. In fact, in Hadith to Live, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad states that with a meal of beans,
Hmm.
fresh, whole, pure milk, and pure wheat bread. I'll say pure wheat bread because now you have to look for organic and you have to look for other stuff that the devil is putting in the food that we don't want in our bread. One could live 240 years just with those three products.
Yes, sir. Wow. Well, it's an interesting thought, but to be reality. Now, yeah, you keep saying about 1,000 years. Now, is it true that you wrote a book about how to live to be 1,000 years?
I wrote a pamphlet.
Mm-hmm.
The first copy I wrote in 1998,
Mm-hmm.
How to Live a Thousand Years. And I basically wanted to document my experience in moving up the food law
Yes,
from
sir.
one meal a day to every other day to every third day.
Mm-hmm.
I did eat every fourth day, which is not in the food law, because in the
Mm-hmm.
food law by the Honorable Silis Muhammad, it jumps from every third day to every fifth day. But
Mm-hmm.
I spent 6 years eating every fourth day until I escalated to every fifth day.
Yes, sir.
And this is in 2007 in
Mm-hmm.
January. On January 31st, I committed myself to eating once every 5 days
Mm-hmm.
in 2007. But I did spend a specific or a certain length of time on each level
Mm-hmm.
until my body got used to it, until my mind was able to accept what I was doing, because it can be more of a mental challenge than
Sure.
an actual physical challenge. But just to sum everything up, I spent about 9 years eating once a day. I
Mm-hmm.
spent about 18 months eating every other day.
Mm-hmm.
When I did that, I started to feel like that this was becoming very easy.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to go to eat every third day. Now, initially, when I first read How to Eat to Live, I was so excited about the information about longevity that
Mm-hmm.
I was eating once a day before I even finished reading the book.
Yes,
And I
sir.
had not even received my letter of belief yet. This would have been in December of 1980 when I first got a hold of the book.
Mm-hmm.
But so my plan right off the bat was to, well, 1,000 years, that sounds like something that I might want to try to do. So my goal at that time was to, well, by the time I'm 30, I'm going to be at every third day.
Yes, sir.
But when I ate every third day for 5 years, I started to feel like this was pretty easy as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I decided to move to every fourth day. And I did that for 6 years. And then I finally made the jump or the move to go to every 5 days,
Mm-hmm.
which took place in the beginning of 2007. So it's been what, 14 years?
Yes,
Well,
sir.
actually, January 31st of 2022 will be 15 years
Mm-hmm.
now on every fifth day. And I love the schedule. I can never see myself going back to eating once a day again or even every other day. It's just, I feel better and operate um, better with no food in my system
Mm-hmm.
than I feel when there's food going through my system from the time I consume it until the time it's eliminated.
Yes, sir. That is very interesting. So, are you going to reissue your pamphlet in an updated form?
I did update it a couple of times
Mm-hmm.
because since then, we've had the advent of GMOs. So I
Mm-hmm.
had to add a little bit about
Now
GMOs.
you're doing the abbreviation thing. What's the GMO?
GMO is a genetically modified organism. But a
Not a
company
human being.
named,
This is food, not a person.
this is food, right? This is
Okay,
a company named Monsanto.
I've
Is
heard of them.
famous for introducing the entire planet to genetically modified organisms. And this is just to be brief. He has genetically modified a lot of the food of the plants in
Mm-hmm.
order to either make them insect resistant or to increase the crop size per acre.
Yes,
So
sir.
by doing that, he introduced a food that the body that has been evolving over millions and millions of years
Mm-hmm.
is not used to, and
Sure,
it's
because
causing
it's
all
not
kinds
real,
of
right? It's artificial.
right. It's causing multiple gastrointestinal issues all throughout the food chain. He's
Mm.
feeding these products to his livestock, so it's
Mm-hmm.
infecting the livestock. The livestock is not used to it, so they get sick. When they get sick, then they want to add more antibiotics
Mm-hmm.
to the animals, and then we consume these products, thinking that we're getting some good beef or some good chicken, but
Mm-hmm.
they've been given
Which you don't
GMO
eat. Which you
products.
don't eat. You don't have to worry about it anymore.
Well, still, I make a note not to eat anything that's GMO
Mm.
because I don't want to incur any damage at all on my system. The
Sure.
Honorable Muhammad had us concentrating on stomach-friendly foods,
Mm-hmm.
and a GMO food is not considered stomach-friendly. It's detrimental to the entire system. Uh,
Well, I know you're going to scream at me when I say this. Back in the 80s, they were talking about earthworms. You remember that craze?
no,
People
what
eating
would you do with earthworms?
people eating earthworms for protein. They were trying to get people to do that. So it's
Oh,
always
really?
something going on in terms of diet. People try things.
Well, you
So
know,
mhm,
many places you can get chocolate-covered grasshoppers
I
or
have seen them,
roaches and
of
the
course.
delicacy. Yeah, these things are considered to be high in protein, so I'm not
Yes, sir.
surprised about the worms, you know.
I was abroad, and we were at a rest stop, and they got the spiders and all kind of stuff. You just take them on out and start to munch on them if you like. So,
Yes, sir.
what advice would you give the average listener today in terms of eating, what to eat and how to eat, the frequency and so forth?
The average listener, and I'll go out on a limb to with this, and I'll even include the Lost Foundation of Islam. Um, a lot of us Muslims have done a good job of making the right food choices, but need a little work when it comes to fasting. A lot of us have accepted the bare minimum, meaning that
Mm-hmm.
we're eating once a day, and a lot of us don't even do that. But once a day is the law, and then coupled with that law is to fast 3 days at the end of each month.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the bare minimum, and
Yes,
that's
sir.
what the average Afro-descendant should do to improve their health, to increase their spiritual awareness, and to improve their grocery bill, to cut down on medical bills. Because in this day and time, you really have to be very, very selective about what you're putting inside of your body in terms of food and drink.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Pure water is best. Now, the devil is even trying to tamper with the water, so um, you should probably have spring water in general, and leave alone the alcohol. That's no good for the body. Has
Yes,
no
sir.
nutritional value at all. Even wine. The
Mm-hmm.
messenger says in his book, "How Did You Live?" You shouldn't even drink wine. Your harsh whiskeys, cognacs, and all that kind of stuff is highly detrimental to the body.
Sure.
Even pure juice, or he calls it juice in the raw. We
Mm-hmm.
should, if you're going to drink juice, 100% juice, you should dilute it 1 to 1 with your pure water, and
Yes,
that's the
sir.
best way to consume your juices. And then he also mentioned pure, fresh milk as the best thing to eat. So Afro descendants would really benefit tremendously by curtailing their diet, skipping days eating is more important or just as important as what you're eating. Because even if you slip up and eat some bad food, if
Hmm.
you're fasting on a regular basis, your body's going to be trying to get rid of that which it does not need, which it does not want, and that which is detrimental. It's going to start trying to get rid of toxins and poisons that you put in the body, even if you went out and splurged a little bit. If you're fasting, you can help correct that to a large degree.
Well, what came to mind as you were speaking, sir, is that there have been a lot of recalls of things that have come from plants that have been making people sick. So it can be coming from the plant already contaminated, but then eating too frequently will make it even worse.
Well, a lot of the recalls or listeria
Mhm.
or some other type of bacteria that's gotten into the food as it's being grown on the farm,
Mm.
and that can be traced back in a lot of cases to the fertilizer that's being used. A lot of the fertilizer is the manure that comes from other animals. So
Mm.
if the animals are sick, or if they're even using the manure or fertilizer made from a pig, that can have an effect on some of the plants or vegetables that are growing. There was a
Yes,
recent
sir.
recall of onions just last week.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I had some in the refrigerator and I didn't know whether to eat them or throw them away. It's just getting to the point where you have to begin to think about what to eat and definitely the frequency. We're closing in on an hour, so we're going to go a few more minutes. What is by far the best meal you can imagine? Just lay it out for me.
The best meal I can
Yeah.
imagine,
Yes, sir.
I would say some start off with a navy bean soup,
Mm-hmm.
seasoned with possibly turmeric and cayenne red pepper. Also in the soup, you might have a trace of onions, garlic,
Mm-hmm.
maybe some carrots or green peppers. You don't want to load it down too much vegetables because
Mm-hmm.
you want to benefit from the bean.
Mm-hmm.
But what I usually put in my navy bean soup is just usually some onions, garlic,
Mm-hmm.
turmeric, and the cayenne red pepper. Also in your meal, and I'm not going to recommend any meat since I don't eat it.
No, no, I
You
understand.
you want to have a portion of some navy beans. Again, you might want to have it seasoned a little bit with the turmeric
Mm-hmm.
and cayenne red pepper. You might consider maybe some ginger.
That's what I just heard. Ginger's supposed to be really good for you. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Ginger is an excellent herb. If you look it up, if you do a search on the benefits of ginger, you'll
Yes,
be
sir.
amazed at a lot of things it does, along with turmeric. Turmeric is an anti-cancer type of herb and should be
Mm-hmm.
consumed as much as possible. I would also include some vegetables, maybe some steamed broccoli
Mm-hmm.
is good to eat, um, along with another vegetable of your choice. Um, what I like is green peppers, but I usually mix them with other types of foods.
Mm-hmm.
I do like potatoes, but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said you should only eat the white potatoes in colder climates. And
Mm-hmm.
then they all of these products need to be organic. Um,
Yeah.
I also like omelets. That's one of my favorite meals. An omelet with
That's an
some
egg, right?
fresh.
An omelet is an egg, right?
That's made from eggs, right? And
Okay.
then I'm sorry,
I know. I just say, okay.
an omelet. One of my favorite that you see in the restaurant is called a California omelet. A California omelet is vegetarian,
Mm-hmm.
and you could add whatever you want in it. But the California omelet is known for having avocado in it.
Mm.
So you choose your vegetables. In my case, green peppers, maybe some tomato. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm making it at home, I'll of course add the garlic and the onions. and in that California omelet, in the restaurant, they top it off with maybe a little sour cream. I don't
Yes,
when I
sir.
make it personally, but
Mm-hmm.
um, that's not bad for you if you use some organic sour cream.
Mm-hmm.
If you cook it in some organic butter, messenger stick butter is good for you to use as a fat. So that's stomach friendly and how to eat to live friendly as well. So those are two of my favorite items to eat: the omelet and then the vegetables with the side of beans, and
Mm-hmm.
starting off with the bean soup.
Well, I have to say it sounds delicious. What note?
It is
What about
extremely
something
delicious.
green? Because see, up in school they show you this pyramid. You're supposed to have this, the different colored vegetables and stuff like that, and they have a food pyramid. So that's not really necessary, is what you're saying.
No, the food pyramid is based on eating 3 times a day or more.
Oh,
So that's not. You can throw that food pyramid out and pick up How to Eat to Live by the Honorable Silis Muhammad, Book One and Book Two,
yes,
and that
sir.
will set you on the right course. Now, of course, like I mentioned, you have to be aware now of the GMO foods because
Mm-hmm.
everything back in the 60s and 70s was organic, but they gave the pure food now the organic name after they
Mm-hmm.
introduced the world to GMOs as
Mm-hmm.
a poison.
Very quickly, three letters, MSG.
MSG, monosodium glutamate.
Mm-hmm. Good or
To
not
avoid
good?
that, that's used as a preservative, I believe, in a lot of foods. So if you see that on the label, avoid it.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
I've slipped up, and we're talking decades now, where I had consumed some MSG and it gave me a headache. So,
Oh, I
um,
can't believe it.
and it was widely known to be found in Asian foods.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
Now, too, and they know that if they want to produce a good meal and that they want you to come back to their restaurant, they're not.
Yes, sir. I had a friend who survived on the really inexpensive noodles and the little package of MSG, so he wouldn't do it anymore. But
Right,
no, it's pretty serious. It seems like a cheap meal, and I think there was something circulating on social media where they show you what the noodles do to you. The inexpensive noodles. They
right.
show what they do to your stomach. And it's just so much. I could even mention how bad a Coca Cola is. I'm not trying to trash people, but we have to begin to think about living and eating. And I think you were saying, if I may, that, and you did say it, that what you eat can keep you here and take you away.
Correct. That's
Yes,
correct.
sir. Well, I'm invisible, so nobody can see me, but I still want to be around, invisible or not. Uh, now, when will you come back and talk about economics?
Um, I'm gathering some information right now for the year-end report that I
Okay.
normally produce for my department, the
Yes, sir.
Department of Economics.
Okay.
But we can schedule maybe say within a month we can do
All
something
right. All right. It,
because there
it'll
is
be
no
it'll be
shortage of information.
Ramadan. Come back and talk about Ramadan during the month of December.
Well, that's more along the lines of fasting, and that gets into the spiritual world. But uh,
Okay.
there is some economics involved with Ramadan as well because you're
Yes,
cutting
sir.
back on consuming. So, it gives you an opportunity to save some money.
Yes, sir. And for those who don't know, Ramadan is the holy month, and for contemporary Muslims, it's always the month of December. But for Orthodox Muslims, it rotates based on the moon. Is that correct?
It rotates based on the lunar calendar. The lunar calendar is 354 days. The
Hmm.
solar calendar is 365 days and a quarter.
Okay.
So
Yes,
Ramadan
sir.
is 11 days earlier each year than the
Hmm.
previous year.
All right. Well, thank you very much, sir. I know you're the economics minister, but it's good talking food with you sometime. I tell you what, I won't invite you to my visible barbecue unless I only have vegetables.
Yeah. And
A final
I don't
word?
know how much you can cook the vegetables on the grill, but I usually like them steamed. You can figure out a
Oh,
way to get
but
them
I
cooked.
thought that was a new thing. I see people with vegetables on their grill today, but
Yes, but
they,
that doesn't necessarily mean that they're cooked properly.
oh,
You know, because they had this thing, this people eating raw foods. They want to eat all
hmm
the vegetables raw, but some vegetables, most of the vegetables need to be cooked to a degree to make them stomach friendly.
yes, sir.
Some of the raw
Okay.
vegetables don't digest very easily.
No, sir, because we're not like the animals that some people eat.
That is true.
Correct?
That's right.
Okay. So that's your final words. We're going to say goodbye. And in the words of peace, it would be Assalamu alaikum to the audience.
Alex Islam, brother, invisible man.
Thank you, Minister of Economics.
It
Once
was my
again,
pleasure.
yes, sir, you've been listening to the Minister of Economics who graced us with his knowledge of eating. And hopefully we can get him back again during the month of Ramadan, and he can talk about the financial aspects of fasting and abstaining from food, as well as the health thing. Thank you very much and enjoy. Wait for the next segment.
Very welcome.